Hello everyone, welcome to LLM Tips with IJ. On this second segment, we're going to be talking about Caleb Adebayo, which you've already watched my previous episode. I hope you have. If you haven't, please check it out. Caleb talks about his time at NYU and why he thinks you should go to NYU. But in this segment, we're going to be talking about Caleb's job story. You guys know I'm very passionate about LLMs finding work and trying to elevate this platform to show folks who have done it and are doing really good for themselves. And Caleb is one of such people that I've met, right? And so this will be an episode where Caleb will be telling us about his job search story, what that looked like, and what you can learn from it, and what you can, how you can position yourself. So first of all, I think Caleb, for this episode, what we will need to do is just it will be good for us to know where you are. I know I've already said it, but just say it again so that everyone can hear in case they didn't hear where you are and what you currently do in your position. And then we'll jump right up to all the things that happened before you got to A&O.
Hi everyone, my name is Caleb Adebayo and I'm a lawyer at the firm of Allen Overy here in New York. I work with the securitization team, which is under the International Capital Markets team.
The job hunting process is particularly arduous for LLM students just because of all they have to compete. You have the JDs who are also competing for the same jobs and have, been in the market, have been in school longer than you, probably been exposed to more internships than you have because they've been in school for 3 years, you've been in school for only 1. And so it'd be good to know what your job hunting story was like, right? Like what did that process look like for you? What did you do? Did you just apply to A&O alone? What did you do, I guess, would be what we want to know.
Okay, my job hunting story is in 2 parts. I think I might have the time to tell one of the parts here, which is the part that talks about how I got A&O, which in itself was not much of a hunt. So maybe I might have to talk about the second part. So with A&O, I always call my job a miracle because in reality it is. And I mean, apart from the fact that I'm a spiritual person, it's just what it is. It's not cliche that I call it a miracle, and you'd understand when I'm done with explaining how it came. So in the spring of 2021, NYU, that was our first semester, I had done a class with one of the professors that was on energy and international trade. And we were asked to write a paper as part of our assessment. And for some reason, which I believe at this point was the Holy Spirit, I wrote a paper on how you can use securitization, which is what I work in right now, as a financing structure for the energy transition in Africa. Now, this was an area I had never worked in before or written on. It was new for me. It was out of my comfort zone, but it was interesting. And, when I was done with the paper, I got an A and I was, pleasantly surprised. And so that was it for me. I had done all I needed to do, done this exciting research and gotten an A. And in the summer, we get emails from NYU's Career Services Office saying that A&O was looking for an LLM in their New York office in the securitization department, on the securitization team. I saw it and I'm like, nah, this is definitely not me. The fact that I wrote one paper on it doesn't mean anything, right? Of course, I mean, there were people at NYU whose specializations were in securities law or corporate law. I was environmental and energy law. And so it just didn't make sense for me to apply. But just before it closed, I decided I won't call it application because we have a portal, as most schools do, I believe, where your resume and transcripts is just there, and all you need to do is just, if the employer shows by the side, when a new opportunity comes in, you just have to click a button, literally, and it goes to the employer. No cover letter, no nothing, no I beg to apply, nothing. And so, that was what happened. And I just, what? Let it not be that I'm not taking advantage of opportunities. First of all, I wasn't looking towards law firms at all. I had experienced the terrible nature of law firms in Nigeria, big law especially, and had decided that I wasn't going to subject myself to that again. And so it wasn't somewhere I was looking at. But I just, did that thing like, okay, take advantage of opportunities. I so much believe that there was nothing going to come of it, that when I got their email And I remember the day very vividly. I was walking to the office of the Maldives mission to the UN because we were at the time doing our clinic attachment. And I saw the email and I laughed. I'm like, these guys definitely made a mistake. Like, how do you invite me for an interview? My CV was completely filled with environmental and energy law things. The paper that I wrote was not included there. Like, I was so not concerned about getting it that I didn't even edit my CV to say, well, I wrote a paper and I got an A. And I had just gotten an internship with the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and I didn't include that. So nothing finance related was there. It was all energy and environmental law. And, you know, the way I responded even to preparing for the first interview was I didn't want to put a lot of effort into it because I knew that it was very lackadaisical, because I'm like, nah, nothing is going to come of this. So I might as well not invest a lot of emotion and time into it. And I went for the first interview, and the regular questions, why did you choose to apply? And I told them, well, I wrote a paper on this. And they were so fascinated, like, you did what? You wrote a paper? Nobody writes a paper on securitization except they are asked to. And most people who come out of the law school program don't even know what securitization is. You know, and you wrote a paper. This is fantastic, you know, and everything. And they're gushing about it. And, you know, they asked me to tell them about the paper, and I do. And they're super excited. And then I get an invitation for an interview. Less than 24 hours after the interview, I get an email saying they're inviting me for a second interview. So at this point, I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit serious. Time to look into it. And then the second interview, the first thing is, well, we heard about you and your paper from the last set of people that interviewed you. You want to tell us about this paper? And so 70% of my interview was about my paper. I kid you not. And then the final interview, the partner, who's the head of, you know, like the top partner in the department, was reading my paper during the interview. And he tells me, I'm reading your paper. And at the end of the interview, he says, I enjoyed your paper. And, you know, there were the other questions and stuff, you know, the behavioral questions. What would you do if this happens in the law firm? But the core of it was really my paper. And, you know, it all took about, I think, 9 days or less. And, you know, the job was in my hands from the first time I got, you know, from first interview I did to the offer. And so when I call it a miracle, I'm not joking. It was in every sense of the word, because the stress that typically comes with applications, I didn't do that, right? But then I would explain the other side, which is what I was doing, right, during the process. Like I said, I wasn't looking at law firms. I don't recall applying to any law firm. I applied for in-house roles, and I applied to, I was looking at nonprofits, you know, trying to get connections and, conversations with people who worked there, you know, signed up for a lot of things, but not really looking at law firms. And again, I should mention that Allen Overy turned out to be a place with great culture, which was like God saying, I'm rewarding you for the years of terrible culture you have experienced. I was doing these other things. One, I was reaching out to my professors, which I think is something people ignore all the time. It's very important to use the gift or the resource of your professors, because that's why you're there. That's what you're paying for. You're paying so much money, you might as well use that. Sign up for office hours, tell them about what you're interested in, what you're looking for. I had a professor who in fact offered by himself. You know, he had this thing with the entire class where he shared us into groups and had breakfast with us. And at the breakfast, he asked us, what are you guys doing during the, after, you know, the program, like during the summer, for those who are in GD and the LLMs after the program. And I think I was the only LLM in that group. So I told, you know, I had a job already at the time. And then, you know, the other people too also stated that they had. But one boy said that he hadn't gotten anything. And the professor said, reach out to me. I'll, you know, see how I can get you signed up to something for the summer. And that was fantastic. And so sometimes they can do this. Not all of them would reach out to do this. Some of them you have to reach out, but professors have always proved to be fantastic resources in terms of job search. They want to, which is why it's great to, you know, make them know you in the class, speak up as much as possible, interact, try to do well on their courses, especially the ones you're really targeting to speak with. If they have an RE role, try to, signify for it and try to get it. If they don't, if you don't announce anyone, reach out and say that you're interested in one. Reach out for office hours, let them know you. So when it's time to ask and say, this is something, if you have a way of referring me or pointing me in the right direction, they will be willing to. I had someone who taught us who told me, I'm willing to write a referral for you for the next 2 years, wherever you want to work. And he is the provost, I believe, of the United Nations University. And so it was such a big deal. So these were the things I was pursuing. I was also, I had my eye on a program. It's like a fellowship at one of the centers at NYU. It's well paid, and it's a non-profit organization. It's a non-profit affiliated with NYU. They call it the State Energy and Environmental Impact Center. There was another center. These were centers I did research assistance with while at NYU. So for me, I had the foot in the door, and all I needed to was to make the right application and speak with the right people. And these were job opportunities waiting to land in my lap. So that's another thing I'll say. Research assistantships are a great way, not just with professors, but with centers, because by the time you do them, you are able to put yourself in that position for when most of them have like full-time roles, so you can apply for them. So those are just two of the things I mentioned, because there was the part of applying and reaching out, but networking generally is very, very important.
Well, that's very interesting. So it looks like you were really tapping into the resources within NYU. Other than that, there was a lot of times colleagues of mine spent applying to organizations out there. So did you have any experience like that, where you just were applying, or maybe sending out cold emails, right? Applying and getting rejections? Is that something that happened? Because that sure happened to me. It's fair share.
Yes, actually. LinkedIn was very helpful, which is another thing that I should have mentioned. Sure. So I set up LinkedIn notifications for jobs fitted to my experience, and I put in for a number of them, and there were rejection emails. They came in very fancy forms. So fancy rejection emails. A number of them came after I'd gotten my job, so they really were not a problem. Did I do cold emails for jobs? Not so much. I think most of what I did was via LinkedIn or jobs that I saw available on LinkedIn. But I did write a number of cold emails for networking opportunities. I definitely did that. And then joining the New York City Bar Association was also a big win, because it gave me access. I was literally going to pursue a lead on a job that one of the people there was offering, because I had reached out to the head of the committee and asked her if I could, and she's like, yeah, you could actually reach out to people. And she then said, there's actually this person who's on the team who had reached out to me to ask if I had any young people, to recommend who would be able to work with him. And she said, reach out to this person. I didn't eventually, because I got the job. But then the New York City Bar also had this mentorship thing where they put you in touch with someone who's, had a number of years of experience working in the field, and they just talk with you, and, you just tell them your intentions, what you want to do, and they give you advice. I was put in touch with the head of sustainability at Pfizer here in New York. It was such a big deal, and she was so helpful. We're still in touch till today, and she's such a lovely person. And she was so helpful that she said, what I'm going to do for you is you go to my LinkedIn. Any names you see there that you want to connect with, just let me know and I'll do an introduction. And that was one of the most amazing things anyone has ever said to me. So you want to join groups that enable you to meet people, especially people who you are looking to work with or circles you're looking to enter. Because the good thing about the City Bar is that it has maybe about 200 or so different teams, maybe even more, for every area of law. So no matter the area of law you're doing, there's a committee for it. And in that committee, there are practitioners. So that's you being able to sit in the room and show yourself. And they really love students when students are apart, and have interactions with people who work in these areas and in these kind of companies and law firms you're looking to get into. So these were some of the things I did. Definitely rejection emails came from the from the LinkedIn I've reached out. I think none of them were successful, to say the least. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So that's really good to know about the groups, because I don't think that is something people utilize, right? So what do these groups look like? I know I haven't actually, I'm not even part of New York City, but I think my husband has mentioned it once, so it'd be good to have a conversation about that. But from what I'm hearing, these groups can help, right? And so for folks who are looking for jobs, it's harder when you do it alone. It's harder when you're just trying to apply. No one can speak for you or vouch for you or can even connect you. In the US here, networking and connection is very important in the job hunting process. So thank you, Caleb. Thank you so much for sharing that. You've already answered my next question, which is really about how you got into A&O. But then I guess this is a question that a lot of folks usually reach out to ask me about. And yes, it would be good to know, what can an entry lawyer, maybe not entry, but what is the range of or salary ranges for folks who are looking to join tier 1 big law firms? I guess it would be good to have, hear those numbers and get people excited, because I know that would definitely get, if it doesn't get anybody excited, it would definitely get Nigerians excited.
Yeah, so the range is mostly known. It's the same across board, especially if you're working in a big law firm, if I'm considered a big law firm. It's 200. It used to be, it moved. It keeps moving. It was 205 when I got in, and it was 215 a week later. So it's currently at $215,000 a year for entry level, and so it's the same thing across board.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess this is now that's very interesting. That's a huge number. I feel like we just said that like it was very casual, like 205, like it's, that's a very big number. Anyway, I guess something I'm curious about is really what the work culture is like at Allen Overy, right? There's always this, I don't know whether it's a myth or a fallacy about like big law firms and how there is no work-life balance and how you just go in. At least my experience in Nigeria is that, back then was that you go in and you just die. You die to yourself. You die. You die every day. But I would like to know what the story is specifically at A&O, because the more information you can give that you're comfortable with, the better, right? So what's the work culture like? Is it very grilling and grinding, or do you actually get time to breathe?
Okay, so I've been here 11 months and counting now. End of this month will be a year. So I think I can speak significantly about what the work is like. But in many ways, I might not be able to speak with respect to what it looked like before coming in terms of workload. Culture I can speak to, but in terms of workload, because before I came in, COVID period, it was heavy. It was heavy for everybody. And again, that was why they needed to recruit a couple more people. But when I came in, things began to cool down. The Fed began to push more interest rates higher to curb inflation. The markets began to slow down. So it's been very balanced. I have had a work-life balance, maybe even too much of a balance. So
I like to hear that.
There was no balance. I tried to, as much as I could. I used my leave periods back in Nigeria to do the other things I wanted to do rather than actually rest. But coming here, first of all, the culture is beautiful, and I think that accounts for most of the things, right? If you're in a place where the culture is great and they respect vacation periods, then that's a win. That's the first win, right? Not in a place where you're on leave, but anyone could call you at any time and say, man, you have to work. You literally never have to do that here. Your leave, everybody respects it. Nobody demands anything from you until you're back. It's that respected. And then, because as you're going, all you need to do is hand over. And then someone picks up from where you started and they keep going. So there's no key man risk. There's no, I'm the only person that can do this. There's no, you have to come back when we leave to go. It is well respected. If you want to turn off your phone throughout your leave, you are free to, right? So it's great that is here. It's great that the culture is great. The people on the team, friendly, respectful. That's beautiful. The workload, like I said, I've been able to balance. The last couple of weeks has been very intense because things picked up in the market, but then you know that it's not all the time. And when it happens, you're happy to pitch in because there were times when
you were chilling.
You were chilling. So you have to make up for I mean, personally, you would also want to, because you want to grow. You don't want to finish 2 years, 3 years of working as an associate and you're not able to do the things that a second or a third year will do. You want to be able to do those things. And that means that you will come through work, through experience, and you want to be able to rack up those hours. Even though, interestingly, ANO does not deal on an hours system. So again, that's another thing that helps culture to be great. So people are not, we don't reward are not based on, okay, how many hours you put in. No, it's not. Right. And that's fantastic. I don't know how they do it, but it is the case. So it makes it a lot about these things help the culture, right? So it's a bit more collaborative than competitive, and then pro bono counts to your hours. So that's fantastic. So I can be doing work that is not billable work and it's counting to my billable hours. It is fantastic. So I think ANO is a great place. I think it's just a blessing that God
sounds like heaven.
He looked at me and said, "My son, I need to bless you with this one for all your years of suffering." So yeah, it's a fantastic place.
Oh, that's so amazing to hear, and that's a very big shift from the law firm culture in a lot of places that we come from. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. I'm really, really happy to hear that that's a firm where you can get paid and you can actually spend the money that you're being paid to have a life and live, right? And so that's so interesting to hear. All right. Thank you so much, Caleb, for your time. Thank you for coming and sharing everything you had to share with the community. Hopefully I'm going to provide your LinkedIn I'm going to put a link. If you're comfortable with that, I can put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the description for this for this episode for anyone who is interested. But before we just go on, I just want to say thank you again. I know I've said thank you so many times, but thank you so much for joining and for sharing your experience.